Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Focus on Liberia. This is Prime Time Sunday. My name is Dennis Jai, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. We want to welcome all of you across the globe. This is our Prime Time edition. Our topic today is the Southeastern Liberia factor. You might have heard in the news and in our political discussion about Southeastern people, Southeastern Liberia, or Southeasterners. This group has become very prevalent. The name has become prevalent in our political discussion. For instance, people have accused the George Weah administration of having so-so Southeasterners. I repeat, so-so Southeasterners in government. And with that backdrop, we want to discuss really who are the Southeastern Liberians and where are they located? Where is this Southeastern Liberia located? What is the makeup, the geography, the history and culture of the people, and what has been their role in the political history of Liberia. With me to discuss this, we have invited Dr. K. Moses Nagbe. He's no stranger to most Liberians. He's Prof. Nagbe. Prof, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
DJ, thank you very much. Thank you all for what you continue to do, you and Brother Sie. You know, one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that the media, those in the media have a very significant role to play in public education. And so whatever you are doing, don't think that it is a small thing. You are doing great. Thank you all very much, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. We are glad to have you. Southeastern Liberia factor, that's a Southeastern Liberia factor and the role Southeasterners play. Why is it that we are talking about them? Anytime there is something that come up, we at Focus on Liberia try to see someone who has little more knowledge than the average person, or what you may call an expert, to come and throw light and share light, because we at FOL, we strive to educate, to elevate and promote all things Liberian. So in the wake of the terminology Southeastern Liberia being thrown around, some accuse them for good or bad reason. We want to see what really this is. And so we decided to talk something called Southeastern Liberia factor. I think 2 years ago, before the 2017 election, there was a lot of Nimba County in the news, where most politicians wanted to woo Nimba County. They want to campaign in Nimba. They wanted the support of Nimba County. People wanted to get the vice president of Nimba. So we wanted to explore that, to explain why such thing will happen. So we have a show called the Nimba Factor. Again, after this show, we are in conversation with Dr. Augustine Conan. We're trying to get him, because another group of Liberians that always in the news, they are Maleke or Mandingo people. So we're going to have a show entitled The Mandingo Factor. That way we explore the ethnic group, their contribution to Liberia, and why is it that after so many years, people continue to look at Mandingo people sometimes as foreigners. So these are the things that we discuss here at Focus on Liberia. If you just joining us, just hit that share button, invite someone as we discuss Southeastern Liberia. Prof. Nagbe, again, welcome. You have spent years and years in teaching and other things that you've done. Briefly, just for those who don't know you, let's say something brief about Prof. Nagbe. English professor at university now in the Maryland area. And you have authored so many books, some of them that I read personally myself. But just in a summary, who is Prof. Nagbe?
Oh, I should introduce myself. Well, anyway, I have, even though I have served in several capacities in the Republic of Liberia, including ministerial positions, I guess when I leave this world, more people will know me about teaching and writing. I've spent at least 40 years in the classroom, and I've written over 25 books, still writing. And I love Liberia. I love my culture, and any opportunity that is given me to say something about my culture, I'm always happy to do that. So I'm glad to be around.
Thank you so much. We are glad to have you. Let's start directly. We are talking about the Southeastern Liberia factor, or for short, the Southeastern factor. Where is Southeastern Liberia located?
To understand that, you need to think about the Liberian map as a foot of shoe, an easy wear shoe. If you look at that, I have I don't know whether your camera can pick this up, but this is the.
Yeah. You can lift it up a little bit more, or we can see it. Yeah. Up. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Can it zoom out a little?
Yeah, no, that's clear. That's good.
Okay. All right. So if you have a foot of shoe and you look at the instep of the shoe, that is from the angle. If you set your foot on the floor, it will be at right angle. So from the joint of the right angle to the shorter tip, you have what is called the instep. So the instep, from the instep all the way to the end of the map, that is what Southeast is. What are the counties that make up the Southeast? We have Grand Jeddah, we have River G, we have Maryland, we have Grand Cru, we have Sino. Did I call River Cess?
No.
Okay, River Cess. And Grand Bassa could be part of it, but Grand Bassa is more like the midpoint. And so you want to maybe think about quote and unquote far east and near east, that sort of a thing. And so you will have the main counties that you refer to as part of Southeast will be the ones I just named: River Cess, Sino, Grand Cru, Maryland, River G, and Grand Jeddah. But of course, in talking about something, of course, probably you may get to later on, in talking about the people, you have to include Grand Bassa, because Southeast, you talk about Southeast, you talk about mostly the Kwa speaking group. And the Kwa speaking group would include Bassa, Grebo, Kran, and Cru. Bassa, Grebo, Kran, and Cru. Those are the main ethnic groups that make up region of the Southeast.
Okay, so we talk about the Southeast, and that's what I hear most time. Do we have other regions in Liberia that you know that you can also name, so that we can compare Southeast with other regions in Liberia?
So regions where you find members of the Kwa group, is that what you're saying?
No, the way we have Southeast, do we have Northerners? Do we have Southwest, or do we have?
The thing about it is that you see, a lot of activities do go on at the base of the map, which is close to the Atlantic Ocean. And that is why every now and then you talk about, instead of talking simply about East, you talk about Southeast, because there is a quick connection between those. But if you are talking about groups, you talk about the Mande, you talk about the Mel, and you talk about the Kwa group. So the Kwa group is that group that is that populates the Southeastern region. When you are talking about the Mel and the Mande, that's where you are going, for instance, to Bonk, Nimba, Bomi, Cape Mount, Bapulu and Lofa.
And we'll come to the this group, but I'm talking about geographical area because we hear the name Southeast mentioned quite often.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have other countries that we can group and call them? Maybe Western Liberia, or we can say Central Liberia.
Well, that's you have Southeastern, you have Central Liberia, and then you have Western, Northwestern, and all those. Yes, Central you find mainly Niba and Niba and Bong. All right, and then if you come down, you find even the very Magwe is just in the central part of the country. So the short of the long is that sometimes especially when it comes to the other parts of the country, sometimes there isn't any much of a clear-cut type of demarcation as you would think about Southeast.
And why is that?
Oh no! I mean that's the patterns of settling. That's the pattern. That's location. That's the settling of the country.
No, because what I mean is, if you went to Nigeria, you will hear Northerners, you will hear Southerners, you will hear in Liberia. You don't hear anything to say, oh, this person is from the north or this person is from the west. All you hear is Southeastern. It's like there is no other geographical location as popular, for the lack of a better word, as Southeast. Why
well, the thing about it is that probably there's a lot more activities going on in that place there. That's probably what it is. But actually, in the broad frame of things, you have the locations are there. It may not be Northerner or what have you. Maybe that's the type of vocabulary they use out there. But if you look at our map, you see those who are in Central. In fact, Bong is often considered as the most central of the country. Yeah. Especially when you are going inland. You see, so it depends on who is speaking.
Okay. Yeah, I don't normally hear that. So you briefly talk. Let's look at the population of the Southeast and
I was looking at a map the other day, and I don't know why the population distribution. I don't know why the crime is not specifically included, but if you look at the Kwa group takes about 30%, of 31% of the entire population.
Yeah. Now let's distinguish when we say Southeast. I know it's very hard to distinguish the geography from the people. Okay, but when we say Southeast, is it what comes to mind? Is it the ethnic group or is it the geographical area?
No, I think it's at least from what I've sensed when people talk about that, it's more of the ethnic groupings. Mm-hmm. The people as such called the Kwas. That's what in most instances I surmise will come to mind.
And I think one of the reasons too that you say, the reason why we often hear Southeast is you say the activity. I think one reason too is probably that's the only area that is occupied by one major group of people, like the Kwa.
Yeah.
And when it comes to male and other groups, they are kind of little distributed.
That's true also. That's true also. Yes.
Does that speak about maybe coordination or unity or being related?
No. Like I was saying, it's got to do, I'm sure, significantly with the especially how our groups settle. It's got to do with the migration pattern. Okay, a lot of these people working together, migrating together, settled that part of Liberia, and therefore you find them, often grouped together in that fashion.
Let's talk about that migration pattern, and let's talk about the ethnic groups. I know I don't want to put you, being a historian, but you see that these people migrated from somewhere. So briefly, let's talk about this ethnic group and their migration.
Some of them even would come together, but what I should say is that You know, the Kwa started migrating as a result of the fall of three major West African kingdoms. You talk about Ghana, you talk about Mali, and you talk about Songhai. So the patterns, sometimes they kind of merge into each other, and it was more of a working into and then working apart, working into and working apart type of pattern. So that's, and you will find some of these stories in the myths that our people told in that process. So if you want to get a slight understanding of their migration pattern as we know it today, you have to look into their folklore, you have to look into their legends, you have to look into their legends. And therefore, especially so when you cannot so easily talk about the exact dates and all that, you will not get a clear sense of that. But I have talking about, for instance, the Kru, Bassa, and Dey, Mamba, and Greville arrived around the 1500 AD. And then, of course, you have the Vai and Mandingos arriving around the 1600s. So you can see more of our people started migrating in our area there around 1400s, coming down to 1500s. That's the pattern we can talk about.
Okay, I'm from Southeast Liberia.
Okay.
And so, and I've done, because of doing show like that, I have interviewed people from other ethnic groups. What I find in the Southeast is we have a lot of subgroups.
Okay.
Like when you say Grebo or Glebo, you may find like up to 20 or more.
Yeah, and to tell you the fact, to get to that level is like it can have its own show all by itself. Yeah. You know, because you have so many subgroups. For instance, talking about Kru, we have Southeastern Kru, we have Granses Kru, we have Picnices Kru, we have Cabo Kru. You see what I'm talking about? Yeah. And when it gets to other areas, you find a long list of because sometimes even little towns will distinguish themselves as subgroups, right, by virtue of the language, if not by virtue of the diet and things like that.
Let's take Kru, for instance. Whose idea was it to put them in one group called Kru? Because I'm from Sino. By the time you get to the Tatwa and the Kwiatu and all those people, the language is really different.
Slightly different, yes.
Yes.
No, but the thing about it is that you know, our history began to be written by Westerners. Okay. And so this is not to put them down. They did very well for the pioneering role they play in terms of categorizing our peoples here and there. But once they look at certain key words in a language and those ran together, then of course they say, well, this group is actually this particular group, and they will call them the Kwa group, and then they get to Mel, and then they get to Mande and what have you. So they are, for instance, if you look at Kru, water that we drink, almost across the Kwa line is ni. You might have ne or something of that sort, but the word is almost immediately understood by people from the Kwa group, whether you are Bassa, whether you are Grebo, whether you are Crown, or what have you. So they look at key vocabulary words, and with those they tend to kind of group the various ethnic groups.
Other people from other parts of Liberia don't even know the difference, or maybe I can say they don't even care to know the difference, right? So they look at Southeastern Liberia just as what ethnic group. Are they right?
Mm-hmm. But are you surprised? For instance, even in America, people who are ignorant or won't care to know. Once you say you are from Africa, they will say you are just what you are from one country.
You're right.
You are from one country. So this question of what we are talking about brings out the issue that if you want to understand a people, it should not take so much for you to educate yourself.
Okay. Yeah.
So individual education and group education become very much important in the process. I mean, if you want to interact with the people, you've got to really understand the basics of that group or of that individual. Sure. So we need something like that in Liberia. I know I started saying that you all are doing well in terms of educating people. I think that is a gap that people need to fill in terms of making sure that we thoroughly understand. This conversation about Liberia must continue to go on. We thoroughly need to understand what basic groups we have in the place there and what their makeup or their characteristics are.
And we'll get a little bit into that. And I share my own experience with you. Yeah. That a friend who, very personal friend, we worked together in the Metro Atlanta area, mm-hmm. and was just saying, Southeastern people, like bundle people up. So through conversation, when I said that my father was killed by the LPC rebels, he was shocked. He said, "Oh, I thought you guys were all the same people."
Oh, you see trouble. You see trouble. That's what it is. Little education can do a lot to provide tragic circumstances.
Yeah, and they are asking a question about. I think Thomas is asking about the migration of Southeastern. Thomas, hold your thought. We're going to bring Professor Dr. Carl Patrick Burroughs is going to deal with Liberian history before 1822, and you will get all that. But just to provide a little education, I'm reading from a book by Dr. Burroughs talking about the different groups. I just want to give our viewers an idea.
Okay.
Liberia said the group is the Niger-Congo language families in Liberia. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So this group, Liberia, is being divided into 4 major ones. The Atlantic, that I'm talking about the language, Atlantic group is Gola and the Kisi. They make up Atlantic. Uh-huh. Then the Kru speaking, or the Kwa. Now that name Kwa has been modified to Kru speaking. Mm-hmm. Include the Basa, the De, the Glebo or the Glebo, yes. The Krao or the Kru, the Kua or the Bele, and also the We. That We meaning Kra and Sapo. Yeah. So they got the Kru. Yeah. Then you have the Northern Mende speaking group. That's the Malinke or the Mandingo and the Bai. And then you have the Southwest Mende, including the Bandi, the Dan or the Gio, the Pele, the Loma, the Ma or Mano people.
It's just as I said. If we in a simplistic form we said English. You have English. You have or the Atlantic group. You have Mel, Mande, and Kwa. That's all it is. But if you want to get into the compartments of each one of them, then of course it's some other conversation we can have.
Right. So we ladies and gentlemen, if you just joined us, we are discussing the Southeastern factor. That's Southeastern Liberia. Who are they? So let's talk about the culture and major activities of the people. I know we talk about this group, the ethnic group. So they should have some similarity in their culture and the activities that they engage in.
If you get into that, you want to think about the dietary habits. You want to think about their songs and dance types. You want to think about their basic activities or professions that they carry. So we were talking about the language aspect. They were engaged in more farming and sailing, especially those who were very close very close to the Atlantic. So they did a lot of fishing. They often do a lot of fishing. They do farming and sailing. That is how, for instance, through the marine activities, that is how they kind of went on board a lot of foreign sailing ships and therefore got known all over the world.
Where else do we have these Southeastern Liberians located in Liberia besides being located?
Well, you instead of talking about where else do we find them, you have to, you see, you are falling into their trap too. You have to talk about the people. It is the people that are sprinkled in other places in Liberia. Yeah. So Southeastern, you talk about the people themselves, and through a lot of other activities, whether individual activities or government-related activities, they have what? They have sprinkled all over Liberia, because Liberia is one in the first place. So there are some who were sent out there for agricultural services. There are some who were sent out there for forestry activities. There are some who were sent out there for surveying. All these things have made people to, when I was growing up in Southeastern, for instance, I had people who came from even Cape Mount and settled in that place there and had children. I had people from Lofa, especially when I know we are kind of jumping into things. After the 1931 war, which was the last serious war between the Kwa and central government, there was a buffer zone. There was a police barrack, the army barracks set in the place there as a buffer zone. And you had Cape Martinians there, you had people from Lofa, you had people from Bong. They were members of the Liberian Frontier Force, and therefore they settled in the place there, and these people went on to have children and all that. So today, some of those children are part of the Southern mosaic.
And we'll come to those wars when we talk about the major activities or the major historical events.
Yeah.
But looking at the people now, because we've all spread throughout the country now, what have been some of the influence of Southeastern Liberia or the people there on the rest of the Liberian people, like culture, pop culture, music, whatever? What has been that influence?
Ours has first been political and economic struggle. You know, when our brothers and sisters came from the United States of America, given their sense of sophistication, they thought that they were best served to be lords of the land. And therefore, the trade routes of our people, including kind of trading labor services to these ships that pass our way, the brothers and sisters wanted to lord it over whatever happened in terms of taxes and all that. And therefore, from the very start of the country, because actually the first major consequential tension that occurred right on the heel of 1847, because in 1846, there was a major maritime dispute and what have you, and that is the thing that led to their decision to declare independence. And our people were underlying factors within that context, because they wanted to continue unchallenged, and our people saw to everything that wasn't going to happen. So the economic struggle came in, and then later on the political struggle, because if you are going to tax me and all that, tax my buildings and tax my services, then definitely I should have a role in the national political structure. And of course, that wasn't going to be easily given. And so the struggle continued all the way.
Right. So I'm glad you mentioned that, and that will be a good way to start the discussion on the arrival of the settlers and what has been. There was come from. If you read our history book, you see a lot of wars going on between the settlers and people from the southeast, mainly the Kru and the Gribbles. So we want to begin from there. That What was that all about?
There are three things. One, hot taxes. Two, marine labor taxes. And three, trade routes going up and down the rest of the country.
So let's start from the beginning.
Come
Let's
again?
start from the beginning, the coming of the settlers. When the settlers first arrived on Providence Island.
Yes.
You know, and we know from what we read in other history books that there was some form of confrontation. And that was far from southeastern Liberia. So how did it all get started?
No, but you have to understand that all the way to the 1700s, especially mid to late 1700s, the Kwa group was on the sea and kept going to Sierra Leone for migrant labor. Yeah. In fact, some of them were able to ferry some of our brothers and sisters from Shebrew Island to what will eventually become Liberia. And as these people went up and down the coast, obviously their members in what you call the rural areas were also following up on what was happening in Liberia, or what would become Liberia later on.
So how did this confrontation start? Come
again?
How did the palaver?
Okay. Okay. These people before our brothers and sisters migrated from America, one of the principal preoccupations of our people was seafaring.
Yeah.
Okay, was seafaring. They individually negotiated with those ships that wanted labor and all that. But eventually, when the settlers came in, the point was that they wanted to centralize the services. They wanted to centralize the services, and in centralizing the services, obviously there will be a taxation and all that kind of a thing. So that's where the tension began, because before that time, before engaging with the ships and trying to a kind of sideline the Kwa, they were having mini trade with the people. They brought things like salt pork and all that, and our people would trade. But then when seafaring got in and people knew that things were lucrative, obviously they wanted to centralize that so that they would be the ones who were fielding labor, and by that taxing those who were employed on ships. And the people said, no, before you got in here, we were doing our own thing, and you cannot just cut it off.
So when you say labor, do you mean were they engaged in slavery? When you say labor, because that's how it is explained sometimes that the seafarers now, meaning Southeastern Liberia, were engaged in slavery. And so when the settlers came, the settlers tried to put stop to that, and that's why they were refusing.
Yes, everyone has a story to tell. There had to be a way of sustaining their power, and so if they had stories to tell, by the time they got in the region that will eventually become Liberia, there wasn't much slave trade going on in that part of the world. So to say that they were trying to a kind of disabuse our people from slavery, that is a myth.
But some form of domestic slavery or some sort.
Well, the thing about that would not have been a more substantive activity in that place that would engender the wars that we are talking about here.
Okay. I heard from and it's important you speak about that they mainly the crew, they were engaged in seafaring, going back along the coast, going to Sierra Leone and along the coast to almost to Nigeria. Yeah. Because from what I read from Dr. Boris and when I listened to his lecture, it's saying that even when the ships went that way, because of the sea, it was almost impossible for them to come back to Liberia. Because when they are coming back, and I also heard that interviewing Dr. Brewer, that when those ships were coming back, a lot of ships sank right there in Liberia. So the only way was for the crew people to tell them how to come back, and that was the only way they could come back.
Okay.
So in other words, the coming of the settlers and the voyages were being facilitated by the seafarers of the Kru ethnic group.
Yes.
So how come now this turned into hostility? And you are saying because they wanted to control that part of the economic activity, and the Kru people said no.
Yes. Yeah, but that was it, because when the marine activities continue, obviously we are talking about human beings who easily see how lucrative these things will get, and in that process, the question was, why can we kind of put in place strategies to make sure that these people, instead of going directly to the ship captains and what have you, they should pass through us. And that is where much of the tension was.
And that tension continued. I know, I read about, I think, 2 global wars and Kru wars. Walk me through some of those historical events, because there were major wars.
There are a couple of wars. For instance, you had, I said earlier that we talk about the tension that eventually became part of the stimulus for the plan for independence. 1846 was where October 1846 was where the tension was, again, over marine services. That's where you had that one. And the Europeans said, well, we don't know you. We've been interacting with people here, and you cannot come in and say that we should. That is where they say, okay, if you say that we are not independent and therefore our contention doesn't matter, then of course we are going to declare independence. That is the source of independence struggle in that place. Then you have the crew, the Cabo crew, which is Sanquin, around the Sano area. The crew, the Cabo crew war. Again, it had to do with taxes. It had to do with curtailing the people's individual intervention. They wanted to, the settlers wanted these people to go through them. And of course, our people said no. And that is what brought about the Cabo Crew War. Within the context of the Cabo Crew War, they had a truce. They had a peace, some peace agreement. But then, of course, in February of 1917, they called a meeting as a way of they said to kind of strengthen the agreement. Unfortunately, when 45 of the 75 chiefs got there, they were hanged. February 10.
By whom?
You asking by whom? Yeah. DJ?
Yeah.
It was the power structure in Monrovia.
Okay.
And at that time, who
the government of Liberia?
Who controlled the power structure of Liberia? It was the settlers. 45 chiefs one day. If all 75 had been there, of course, it would have been a different story in terms of, well, they would have eliminated all. Now, I say these things, normally when I have to comment on this, I say these things not as a way of creating anger and what have you, but just for people to understand some of the tensions that have started and how we can quell them. We cannot live in the bitter parts of history. We have to try as much as possible to understand them so that we go beyond them. If you try as much as possible to kind of disenfranchise or to disrespect the personhood of a group, then definitely a lot of things can happen. And therefore, we have to be very careful what we are doing in the country.
What other wars? You named two.
And then of course there was the war of 1913 in the Riverside area, Sextus. There was another war. Again, much of this is geared towards the whole idea of who are you? Who are you to be able to chart your own destiny? Who are you to enjoy your own economic benefits and what have you? Who are you to negotiate for your labor outside of some power structure?
Mm.
That was the question, and people did not take kindly to that. And then after that, you had in further down the southeastern area, there was an onslaught of the Liberian Frontier Force, which culminated in another war. That was 1917, and then of course 1931. 1931 was the last war, and of course things were settled. And from that time on until the Civil War came, there hadn't been any kind of major clashes and all that.
So someone may ask, why? Because we have other parts of Liberia that did not engage in those kind of full-scale war with the settlers, aka the government of Liberia. Why was this so prevalent along
you have to understand that the contest for space, the contestation for space and survival became intense along the coast, because that's where the settlers were settled, and it took a long time before people went into the interior to get into annexation. So their perimeters of habitation was narrower, and it was gradually that they moved into the interior areas, and of course you will understand that it was around 1910, for instance, that Arthur Barclay decided that, again, because of taxation, these people sadly were stranded, economically stranded, and they had to find a lot of means to be able to exist as a government. It got to a point, 1910, that was when Arthur Barclay decided that the native people would become part of Liberia. Before that time, they were not part of Liberia, and yet they wanted to dominate, especially economic activities and all those in the country.
So what was the role of other people that we know as Liberians today, like from other parts of Liberia?
What I'm saying is that gradually they push inland. I'm talking about the settlers. Gradually they push inland to be able to expand the territory, the Liberian territory.
So the other ethnic groups in Liberia, or the other parts of Liberia, even though their jurisdiction was not extended there, did they join them to be part of, to fight against?
Except when the Liberian Frontier Force was organized in the early 1900s. So when the Liberian Frontier Force was organized, that Frontier Force actually was intended to have America and Great Britain kind of collect their loans that they had given to the settlers. That's why Liberian Frontier Force was established. But then later on, Liberian Frontier Force became the military arm of government to go out southeast and all those other places to exact hard taxes and all that.
I thought they wanted the Frontier Force so that we can Liberia territory was being threatened by the neighboring colonial powers.
No, initially it was more for the recouping of loans that Liberia had been given. It was later on. It was later on that was expanded into where territorial integrity, keeping territorial integrity and all that.
So let's talk, before I even get more to the frontier flows, I have a question on the frontier flows, but I have a question here about Thomas Johnson said, please speak to the Grebo Confederation war with the settlers.
Yes. Again, you will remember that at the very start of what we eventually become Liberia, we had what? We had Sino, Maserado, and Bassa.
Yeah.
And then there was Maryland in Africa that went all the way to the Cape and thought that they will establish a state all by itself.
Yeah.
Again, the whole thing of conquering the natives of that place became another tension. These people had trade routes and all that. These people will come to get into migrant labor and what have you. And the power structure in Monrovia, and then, of course, later on, the Maryland group decided that these people will be controlled. And so there was the Grebo Confederacy that fought them significantly. As a result of that, J.J. Roberts and his group had to go in there to build that other colony up, and that's all the reason why they decided that they would become part of what would become Liberia. That's how you would talk about the four original counties. Okay, so Maserado, Bassa, Sino, and then eventually in the early 1870s, Maryland joined them.
I asked you earlier about, why the Southeast. So because the sea, and you said, because they live along the coast. The coast also is in Maserado and also Cape Mount. But we didn't hear all this kind of full-scale war from the Cape Mountainians or people, or the Mamba Bassa in Maserado.
Mamba Bassa.
What about the Southeastern Liberia that they're always fighting?
Yes, because that's where the original struggle and tension was. That's all it is. If you are in a place and you are not given that much, as we say, hard time, how do you respond to that? Those who were bearing the brunt of whatever was happening in there, those are the people who had to resist it.
So what has been the impact of all this fight? How has it, on the whole country, and even today, has there been vestiges or has there been anything resulting from that war that we can see today, or those wars?
Self-respect. I don't care whether these people didn't get much from there. Self-respect has been a very important thing. So that you have people who cannot stop for nonsense.
And we sometimes see that today. So does it mean that the Southeasterners are hard-headed, or because the
it's not a matter of being, well, you can apply whatever term you want to apply, but these are people who will resist suppression, oppression any time of the day. That's what it is. Go ahead.
Does it extend in the present? Is it because of, to what extent or how much of that do we see today, if I can put it that way?
No, I mean, by the time you got to the late 1960s and then into the early 70s, many of these other groups, their children had gone to school and returned, either through government scholarships or through mission scholarships, church mission scholarships. And these people saw what was happening in other parts of the world, and they were ready to kind of, ensure that self-respect and all those things came into the picture. So whatever page they may have gotten from Southeast, they kind of expanded on it. And that's part of why we've, to this day, struggle about inclusion and all that.
Okay, I want to dig a little more into that, because that too move into what we see as the progressive era. But before I come, let me go back to the frontier force. we see that, and I read from history, first of all, bulk of those who fought in the, who were members of the frontier force came from areas like Lofa and other areas, right?
Yeah.
Was it a form of pitting one group against the other, or?
Well, I don't know whether one would say pitting the one group against the other, but the idea was that they had somebody to they had to find somebody to do the dirty part of the work. All right, they will not be the ones going out there to collect hot taxes and all that kind of a thing and engage with needless fighting and all that. Therefore, the Liberian Frontier Force had to go there, and they happened to have been those people from those areas. And of course, you cannot. It is important for us whenever we are discussing these historical things to not easily blame, for instance, the Liberian Frontier Force. If there is much ignorance and what have you, people can make use of that. Those in power can make use of that. And that's where power dynamics comes into the picture. So somebody might say, your own people, your own native people, that then kind of oppress you and what have you. But who sent them? Who sent them to collect taxes? Who sent them to quell tension when people's livelihood and all those things were at stake? Who sent them there?
Did that bring about tension between Southeast and other part of Liberia?
I won't say there was tension directly between Southeast and the rest of Liberia. No, these people knew, those in the Southeast knew who were the sources of their discomfort. So they didn't take it on other ethnic groups. They knew that it was government that kind of sent them out there. They knew who comprised the government, the power structure in Central Monrovia. So it wasn't like the choir group getting ready to face off with Mel or Mandate group. No, it wasn't like that.
Okay. So now how that physical warfare, things subsided, as you said, people went to school and other parts of Liberia caught on and started fighting, and then we had this progressive era. To what extent is that was that tension from the Southeast or that disagreement give rise to what we saw during the progressive era of people fighting for their right? Did they have anything to do with it?
It may have drawn some semblance of lessons and what have you. But the thing about it, you have to think about the fact that human beings are human beings. If they get to a sufficient understanding of minimized inclusion, definitely they are going to rise up to demand what? Significant inclusion. So that, for instance, people like Francis Villa Moraes from all the way Maryland, Neticia Brownell, and all those people. And then by the time you get to the 1960s, you are talking about Henry Boyma Famula Sr., who was at one point an ambassador in East Africa, and because of reading communist books and what have you, they kind of threw some light on him, and he had to go through the hell of courts and all that kind of a thing.
Somebody asked Dr. Nagbe, who were some of the notable personalities among the Southeastern people during those times? So let's start from the war era. I remember the name Juan Nimlen.
Come again?
Who were some of the notable personalities among the Southeastern people during those times? Let's start from the war time to the political time.
Yeah, but by the time we got to the 1920s and getting into the 1930s, that's where you found very serious people. As I was talking about, I called the names. Joan Nimle, that was 1931. You have Francis William Morias. You have Nettie C. Brownell. Later on, you will have Detwer. All these people were from that part of what will become Liberia, or that part which was Liberia already.
Is it why you get plenty of politicians from the Southeast?
Is that right? Would you say that?
You know, they just like talking and making confusion.
What do you call making confusion now?
Other people tell me, they said, you know, if you go to Southeast, the place is underdeveloped. You just get people who like to talk and politics. In one town, you get 20 presidential candidates.
If you got 20 presidential candidates, are they from Southeast?
No, I'm saying they're too much into politics. Is it because they started engaging the settlers very soon, or why is it?
Yes, that's part of it. But DJ, what do you call politics? To stand off when someone is trying to destroy the route to your daily bread, do you call that what? Politics? If that is politics, then I want to be part of that politics. What is happening in this country, in America, for instance, what do you call that? Throughout the history of this country, there has been tension. People, marginalized groups, and what have you. If you go to a country or you go to a region, and almost immediately you want to strategize to make sure that those people you meet there fall under you and take your yes and what have you. What do? You keep your mouth closed and destroy your very livelihood. If that is what politics is, then that is politics that nobody should shy away from. You have to understand that, as I said earlier, these people, some of them, when they were coming from Chevron Island, what have you, it was our people who helped ferry them to this part of that part of the world. It was our people. If they hated them, they wouldn't have done that. But eventually, when they got seated and thought that they would lord it over the people, that was where the tension was, and that continued. That has to do with inclusion. What is wrong with the politics of inclusion?
So in 1980, we have Samuel Doe and mainly people from the Southeast staging a coup.
What was it people merely from Southeast that staged the coup? Can we look at the 17 and see that?
Okay, let's look at the 17. We have Samuel Doe. Southeast. You have Thomas Wesen. We have J. Nicholas Podia. We have Nelson Toole.
Where's Nelson Toole from?
From Glenjeren. Toole Town.
Okay, Toole Town.
Right. Fred J. Blay, I don't know if you were part of the 17, I don't think so, but Fred Blay, Lawson Dripper, Swen Dixon, these were all Southeasterners.
Okay. Well,
they dominated the PR, the 17 that overthrew.
Yeah. And when they finally became what happened eventually, other people came on board, right?
Right. No, I'm saying if they fight with if they Joan Nimle and all those things, if that was one of those reasons why people that overthrew the government have to come from the Southeast, is it like something in their DNA?
Call it whatever, DNA or RNA. The key thing is that if you have a region and there is much suppression that inhabitants of that region feel, naturally they will have to fight back. Naturally, they will have to fight back. If you just throw in a bit of Nigerian history, think about what led to the Biafran War. Think about what continues to happen in the Delta region of Nigeria, where there are all companies and what have you, but yet what is coming to those people is little, next to nothing. What do you want the people to do? You see, So the short of the long is that, well, if the Southeastern region, if they put up resistance, what brings about resistance? There's got to be something that was stirs up resistance.
Right.
So if these people, the personhood of these people was disrespected, if the economic wherewithal was a kind of being curtailed, you wanted the people to sit by and cry and pity themselves and say, poor us.
Right.
So the best people can do is that, look, these people rose up because their personhood, because their economic lifelines were being curbed, were being curtailed. Therefore, they rose. And then eventually they decided that there had to be inclusion and all those things there. What we need in the present time is to not disrespect any sector of Liberia. Do not disrespect any sector. Every sector of Liberia means a whole lot in terms of building a vibrant nation. To say that, oh, you people did that, they didn't come out of the blue. They are not crazy. They were not crazy.
Okay. Dr. Nagbe?
Yes,
Let
please.
me our viewers, if you are watching us, this is Focus on Liberia. We are discussing the Southeastern Liberia factor. My guest is Dr. K. Moses Nagbe, an author, a poet, and also a professor. We have our phone lines open. If you want to join the conversation, please call. The number is on the screen there. It's also pinned. Please call that number and be part of the conversation. I lived through the war, starting with my teenage years. And even today, there is a much talk about Southeastern Liberia, especially being put in one bucket or painted with one broad brush. During the war, I was young, but I saw that when the rebels came, and for some wicked reason, they were targeting Crown people, they also did not distinguish between everyone who came from the Southeast, Crown, Gribble, Crew, Sapo, and sometimes even Bassa. Or after I grew up, and then I started hearing from other people from other parts of Liberia talking about Southeastern Liberia, then it occurred to me that probably that was the same sentiments the rebels were using, painting an entire region with one broad brush, that everybody who come from there the same, and so they were targeted. I'm hearing some of that same language today.
Yeah, this is sometime, I think it was yesterday or Sunday. This is what it is. You know, you have to reflect on power dynamics.
Okay.
There are people who enjoy using power, and there are people who do not understand what is going on, and therefore they end up celebrating or aligning with those in power. Sometimes even some of the victimized people, they end up blaming themselves. But I think in the times we find ourselves, a broad as well as a specific type of education has to be waged so that individuals understand what gets people angry. Except you are a lunatic, you cannot get angry for the sake of getting angry. There has to be some stimuli to do that. And we have to be able to look at that stimuli, if even it is not a stimulus. Here were people who arrived, and unfortunately, they did not have a huge reservoir of resources, and they had to fend for themselves. Okay, and they had to use all means to be able to do that. And when that came to a kind of coercing those they met on the ground, and somebody does not see why those that were being coerced, those that were being oppressed, will not stand up for something, then there is a problem. And to the extent of their choice to not understand what must have gone on, they will have to live with that. They will have to live with that.
There were people who even appear on this show, right? And say, well, President Samuel K. Doe came from the Southeast and his government did not end well. It ended with a 14-year of brutal war. And his government was dominated by people from his ethnic group. And to those who are outside of the Southeast, they just look at that as one group, right? And they also give example that President Weah, his cabinet is dominated by people from the Southeast. And they are naming people like the labor minister, the finance minister, the information minister, the commerce minister, etc., that the government is dominated. So they are looking at Southeast now as this, a bad way.
Okay. Well, what I have to say, in fact, when there are individuals who say that this president, and I don't really mean we are, this president or that president's cabinet is filled with people from his or her region, I think, again, this will then lead to we can say that there is a gap for research to be able to authenticate the fact that, for instance, you can take the last four administrations. Maybe you can go to Tubman. Maybe, of course, Tubman stays so long in the place there, and there is a possibility that it wasn't one region that he drew his cabinet from. The same thing can be said of Tolbert. The same thing can be said of Taylor. I'm talking about being able to really look at the cabinet list of these people. Now, keep in mind, in our setting, there are certain people who have names, and by just looking at the names, you will not be able to kind of identify the region they are from. If I am Crew, and you eventually find out that I'm Moses Emmanuel, you will not, unless I tell you, or unless people who grew along with me tell you that this Moses Emmanuel is a Crew fellow, you will not know. So all those things have to really be looked at, and someone eventually will do that research and write a book on that. But to say that Weah has all his cabinet as people from the Southeast, I cannot vouch for that, because I haven't done the research to ensure that, yes, indeed, all the members in there. The same thing we want to do with Ellen Johnson Sirleaf's group. As for Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the other time she said, I mean, every now and then someone say, oh, she Crew, oh, she Gula, and what have you. Yeah, you got to kind of deal with that one. Or whatever the case is, I think much research needs to be done in that area to be able to say definitively that, hey, this administration was more ethnocentric than the other administration in other countries. But I think we need, the short of the long is that I think we need conversations about that.
Right. So just for, hypothetically, if the present government was dominated by people from the Southeast, would that be something that would be a genuine criticism? That
of course, again, one of the struggles people waged from the Southeast was inclusion, political inclusion. And so if such a thing happens, then of course there is need to ensure that the balance, there's need to establish a balance. So I won't have problem with that. If it is proven that Weah has drawn all his talk about 85 or 95% of his cabinet from Southeast, I won't tolerate that. That's not what our people fought for. Our people wanted to ensure genuine inclusion, genuine respect of citizens and all that, making sure that all of them participate in the power structure in the country. Because actually, let's face it, it is not only one side that made him president. Can you imagine 15 out of the 15? I think 14. If he won 14 out of 15, then why would he? Because the southeastern counties are like 6 or 7. So what about the others? So if it is proven that he's taken 85 or 95% of his, which I really doubt, if he has taken all that from there, then it stands to reason that people have to question that. So we cannot where one side enjoy whatever enjoyment means, enjoy the fruits of national labor.
So let's look at if you can summarize this. Who are Southeastern Liberians, and what has been their role in the Liberian mosaic? If we talk about the whole Liberia,
who are Southeastern? Those are people from the southern and eastern part of Liberia. They are people who would never stand for others suppressing their livelihood, challenging their livelihood, and what have you. They are people who are as human as anybody else, who can love when love avails itself, and who can stand their ground when the need comes for them to stand their ground. If there is no trouble in the path, they cannot get to the point. But you have to resist something. Something has to be in the way to be resisted. Something has to be in the way to be resisted. So they had to resist because of the fact that their economic wherewithal was in peril. That's what it was. So Southeasterners are good people. They are, in every group there are bad ones. So it is talking about the human story. It is talking about the Liberian story. There are some that are happy-go-lucky. There are some that are hardworking. There are some that are laid back. There are some that are very much assertive. So you find them there.
So you talk about resistance, right? You mentioned several times that people don't like to be oppressed, and so they will resist.
Yes.
Now, I think it was Chinua Achebe who said the person who was in the rain, he now entered the house, he put on dry clothes. He's more reluctant to go back in the rain than the person who had never been there. So some of the criticism has been the person who hated resistance now is in the house and he's oppressing other people.
Well, you can see that is the human story. Let's come back to America, which we always make as our cultural model. Those who started the 13 colonies, they complained that Great Britain was suppressing them.
Right.
They left from there, they came to this new world. What did they do? They found people to suppress. That is the human story. That is all the reason why, there will always be some form of the chapters of our resistance all over the world. So all we have to do is not to say, well, yeah, there are people over there. No, the thing that must be done is that those who get in power and think that power is sweet, therefore they are going to suppress other people, they must be challenged. They must not rest easy. They must be challenged. So whoever is there, whether we are whoever is there, if they don't see sense, if they do not understand that when you suppress people, when you cut off their lifeline, they have the capacity to resist, except that at some point that resistance has to be a non-violent one, so that people do not destroy things that take so long to build.
Sam Wulu said, can you speak to the efforts of Dr. P.G. Waller and his internationally led investigation that led to the removal of the King administration?
Wee Waller was the son of what you generally call a king, the son of a chief from Granses, and through missionary efforts and what have you, he came to America and started very well. In fact, he met who is this guy? He met Detour, and Detour was one of those who chaperoned him, and he got his education. When he got his education, he got a master's and he got a degree in theology and went back to Liberia. He went. It wasn't all that long when the Nagbe crisis broke. Now, prior to his own activity in there, Thomas Faulkner, who at the time was who had vied for the presidency with King, became pissed off when he found out how the election was rigged, and so he, Faulkner and Detour, they bonded together, got the statistics and all that kind of thing, and that is how the International Commission of Inquiry was set up by the League of Nations. So when the League went in, I think March of 1930, Wee Waller was a counterpart secretary. Arthur Barclay at that time had retired, and he was also part of the team that helped gather the information that eventually led to the report that was written, and it was the report that eventually led to the demise of the King government. I mean, the King administration.
Another question here from John Eastman, and it's about slavery. Let me read. It's long. In the 1820s, when the agents of the ACS began their mission of purchasing land, the agents capitulated to desires of the Bassa chiefs to include a provision that the prospective colonies would do nothing to interfere with the slave trade. Hence, slave factories existed within gun range of the early settlement. In 1825, there were contracts for furnishing about 800 slaves within 4 months. Why is Dr. Nagbe denying the fact that slave trading was mainstay in Liberia at that time, and the ACA was adamant against it?
Adamant against what now?
Against slavery.
I don't know what the gentleman calls denying. I didn't say that. I didn't say that there were not pockets of slavery. I was saying that was not the one. That was not the main activity in that place. And definitely, people can create their own chapters about slavery. You have to keep in mind that by that time, slavery was on the wane, because even it was in the late 1870s that slavery was abolished, even in Great Britain. So people flying up and down the routes would not have encouraged a strong activity in slavery. Yes, you find pockets here and there, but that was not the main activity in our places. So I'm not denying the fact that slavery, there were pockets of slavery, what have you. But the way normally our history goes, which is that the settlers came in, and they were the major tension was that they were trying to stop slavery, and the indigenous people. That is not the significant truth about the place there.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is Focus on Liberia. We are in conversation with Professor K. Moses Nagbe, and we are discussing the Southeastern factor. Who are the Southeastern Liberians, and what's their role in Liberian politics? sometimes there's harsh criticism against those from Southeastern Liberia. Why is it that so? Is it justified? Or people are just trying to pick on them because they resisted in the past and they wouldn't allow anyone to, what we say in Liberia, eat over their heads. So if you are part of this, please call in. If not, Professor Nagbe, you just wrote an article. I want also, before we end this, I want to take you to your article, which is two evil phenomena and the need to keep alert. That's why you're always writing, and we follow you. So without going too much into it, summarize for us that article and why you decided to write it.
Okay, I think it was like a lead up to what we are doing now.
Okay.
Power dynamics, if that phenomenon is not understood, so many terrible things can happen. And that is part of what we are talking about. The idea that people from the Southeast put on resistance, those who want to align with those exerting the power, there's nothing you can do about them. But all I'm saying is that there has to be an understanding of people who are exerting power and those who are being victimized by their power. If there isn't any thorough understanding, even those who are being victimized will turn out and say, Elora, this thing they may be beating me for, Elora, our cause of it. The same thing you find in rape and all rapists and the raped, where an individual will say that maybe the way I dress, that's why the person raped. That person have business to rape you? Doesn't he have sense? Doesn't he have values to make sure that you do not you do not overpower anybody just within the wing of an imagination? So what I'm saying in here, there are two things where people have to understand someone who has power and someone who is being victimized. The other thing is the arrogance of ignorance.
Yeah.
If you do not understand something, the best you can do if you respect yourself is to really study this thing, learn so many things about that, ask a lot of questions. And in that process, you will be able to understand. And if you have to convince the power holder to kind of be careful how he or she holds the power, then you can talk about it. Other than saying the man who has power is right and you who are being victimized, you are what? You are wrong. So public education, individual education must come into the picture so that when we understand why things happen the way they do, then we will be able to kind of rally around and make sure that we find amicable solutions to problems. The problems in Liberia, for instance, they are not insurmountable. But the idea is that there are many people who fail to understand or at least fail to find the information, relevant information to be able to deal with that. This brings in another point, which is that whether there were pockets of slavery and what have you, that would not justify what was done to our people in those days. And yet we cannot live in the past. We cannot continue to live in the past. We need to understand why things went, and I said that earlier on, we need to understand why things went on the way they did. And now we should be able to turn a leaf. Not anybody getting into power and believing almost immediately that he is unconquerable. So if it is just any person who cannot read the chapters in history to know that you do not lord it over people so easily, to find ways in which you can bring people to the table so that amicably they can resolve issues and put things where they belong, then there is a problem. That is the thing we should be focusing on now. Inclusion, respect, and all those things are very much important. They can help they can help redeem a country or a nation.
Here is how you concluded in this article. In the current Liberian occurrences of all forms of abnormal behaviors and shenanigans, including rape, political and legal acquiescence, if not collusion, we must all stand on the tallest tower to condemn such unqualified indecencies. It is about time Liberia crawled into a day and time of heartwarming doses of healing.
Yes.
To have experienced war must not translate into signing contract with imbecility, I mean brainlessness. What do you mean? What do you mean to have experienced war must not translate into signing contract with brainlessness?
Once in a while, people can say, oh, the people fought war, they are so traumatized and all that kind of thing. So you all leave the thing, let it stay away and what have you. That is brainlessness. You saw what happened during the war. You saw how people behave and all that kind of thing. That's war story we'll continue to talk about. That's what we'll always use as excuse. When are we going to grow up? When are we going to get a sense? When are we get a sense to respect one another? When are we going to get a sense to ensure that whatever resources that are coming in are managed well, so that one person doesn't eat until the grease go all the way to the elbow and break the neck? Why? When? That's what I'm talking about.
Good. Let me read a few comments and then we bring in one caller and then call it a day. This is from Jackie Sire. He said, exactly, Prof. People create their own narratives. The livelihood was the port and this was threatened. The American Colonization Society was not trying to stop slavery. The existing government at the time wanted to have all the revenue pass through the government.
Yes.
The government felt the Southeasterners were too independent, even in terms of revenue and income.
Yes. And that is the truth. That's what I'm saying. Even the whole idea of sometimes sending gunboats to that part of the region, it was the kind of stories it was the kind of narratives they had. We are trying to quell slavery and what have you. What do you call quelling slavery in the place that when just about that time slavery was virtually going out of style? So once the people began to raise voice, they will bring such stories in to justify whatever they were doing to the people over there. When in fact it was hard taxes, it had to do with seafaring taxes and all those things that they were unqualifiedly drawing from the people, and that was the thing that led to a lot of the upheavals in the place there.
Jerry Gilman said, "Why are we not celebrating the victory of Wea as a direct result of the past fights?"
Well, he himself has to put himself in shape. You don't just celebrate somebody for the sake of celebration. I mean, if certain things are happening and we cannot talk about them, then definitely we are being silent over what is not done right. If he does well, it's the child from that place that people will have to celebrate. But if you want to celebrate somebody, no matter what that person does, then that is not a healthy thing to do in the whole country, in the whole nation.
Bafi Soma say, Dr. Moses Nagbe, why our few native presidents fill their government with people from their ethnic groups and region, instead of balancing evenly from every region in the country? Can the native now complain about the Congo of the way they run their government in the past or in the future?
You said the last part, I didn't get it.
He said, can the native now complain about the way the Congo people run their government in the past, if they are doing the same?
Well, the thing about what the gentleman said regarding the unequal distribution of the perks of the administration, again, it might be anecdotal. You know, this person does not have. I don't believe that this person, if he has, then I'm sorry, but does he have all the facts? You know, it's one thing for words to just fly off your mouth and you say that is what? That is an allegation that people should accept. There has to be the data to go along. There has to be the evidence, foolproof evidence to go along. So if he is saying that, if he has the facts and that is verifiable, then he has a point. But hey, this whole idea of regional interest and what have you, again, I am not applauding it, but that is a natural tendency. That is all the reason why we have institutions, civic institutions that are supposed to challenge a lot of the excesses of power. The media is there, schools are there, the churches are there. They are supposed to speak up and not just throw allegations around, but make sure that they have the facts to be able to go away with whatever they are saying. I do not subscribe to anybody who comes from one region and wants to dominate the entire nation. I do not subscribe to that. And I'm sure I'm not alone. I know there are several other people that are in that particular category. But what I'm saying is that you don't throw around allegations for the sake of throwing around allegations. Now, social media is of such that before I got on, I think, is that Toby you people were interviewing?
Yes.
What was the name of the guy you were interviewing?
On what topic?
This guy is from the WIA office, man.
Oh, Smith Toby.
Toby, yeah, Toby, yes, that's right. This guy is still on the job. And yet, what was on social media that he has been dismissed, right? Yeah. And then he says, well, I don't know where that thing coming from. Whether smoke there or smoke is not there. The thing about it is that this social media, people get in corners and just say all kinds of foolish things. We cannot grow peacefully in the country. We cannot grow peacefully in a society when you have people who are just throwing allegations around. But if those things that are said are factual, if there is evidence, I think people should act on that evidence.
Thank you, Professor. I think,
Dennis?
Go ahead.
Okay, this is from the control room. I think the question the viewer asks, that Dr. Moses Nagbe captured it in the first paragraph. I may be reading it wrong, but I would like to read it. He said, we must never lose sight of the phenomenon of power dynamics, where there are those who exert power, and there are those upon whom the power is exerted. Those who exert power are predators. Those who are affected by the power are the prey. The predators do have their arbiters or allies. Such allies or arbiters are those who always find reason to blame the prey. This is true when talking about the victimizer and the victim. That's why he said earlier, and I think it answered that person's question about those who are in power and the way they behave. It doesn't matter where they come from.
Yes, that's true. I mean, that's true.
Thank you, Prof. And we can thank you enough. Let's conclude on the Southeastern factor. I know you understand the need why we had to do this, talk about Southeastern Liberia, because of what is in the news and what we've the education that we've been able to provide through this. I just want to read one comment of someone who was asking you for something. It's important because sometimes Sam Wallow say, Professor, will you consider leading a program or a project that trains young and other Liberians to become historians for purposes of becoming tour guides in support of Liberia's tourism to promote historic sites across the country? Before you answer, Prof, people normally ask these questions, and I don't want to also ask them to say, okay, what can you do about it too?
Okay.
But like we are doing a program here, but okay, let me rest my case. You answer. No, because sometimes soon you write something, they say, oh, why can't you write a book? And then when you write a book, they don't buy it.
You say you write a book, and then what
You say
happens?
somebody else must do something, and we don't try to help.
Yes.
But let me get your response. That was my emotional response.
The Wallomet says, if I can head a program to do what?
To train young people so they can become historians for the purpose of becoming tour guides in support of Liberian tourism to promote historical sites and other things.
That is a very, one of the most important subjects we need in that country is history.
Yeah.
There is some paucity, in other words, some scarcity of the real history of our place there. Even the mainstream history that we talk about today, as we're talking about here, where there are some people who want to justify the fact that, when the people went, there was slavery here and there, therefore, which was not true. This is not true. You may have had one or two pockets of that, but that was not the core part for which the attention was in that part of Liberia. So all these things must be understood. Even the very the struggle of the 1970s, for which people like Tipote are being maligned and even insulted and what have you. If you understand the total history of that era, you will what? You will be respecting those people. You will be respecting. These are people who would have gone on to enjoy their gravy and everything and leave everything undone. But they went to work to deny themselves all those goodies, to speak for the ordinary people. So all those things have got to be understood. I am not saying that there might not be one or two who went astray, but the actual mission of those people and what they did, that has to be celebrated within the context of ensuring inclusion. Inclusion is the problem that is happening in that place that my people and history should be able to put all those things in perspective. So I will be very glad to be a part of such project.
Thank you. And Mr. Wallow, this start from Focus on Liberia. We are having a program like this. We want this to be really in Monrovia, and that requires little money, about $100 for people to carry it. So these are some of the things that we want to do. We have lined up some historians. We have Dr. Carl Patrick Burroughs coming to talk about Liberia before 1822. We also have Dr. Herbert Brewer, who's going to talk to Liberia, who are going to talk to the history of Liberia from 1880 to 1980. That's the era of the True Whig Party. So we can start something small by just supporting what we are doing here and helping people in Liberia to carry the message. Prof, let's get your final comments and your final thoughts on the subject tonight, and we can close the broadcast.
Liberia is a sweet country.
I agree.
Liberia is a sweet country, and the people, whether from east, west, central, south, they are beautiful people. Nothing in this present era must deny them that moment of mutual enjoyment. It begins with understanding the history. To get into needless blame game is not going to solve the problem. Like I said, what I was saying about the past is simply to put a few things in perspective. Intermarriage and all those things have come about, when those people came initially, when you look at this fine girl and look at that other fine girl, by the time you know what's happening, they are having a baby. Those babies come about, and of course, they deny their native roots and all that kind of thing. Those people have to take their scales from their eyes and know that Liberia belongs to Liberians, and we all have to work together, clean ourselves of the bitterness, and move on with what? Happiness and joy. That is what I want to see, and I want to be part of.
Thank you. I'm sorry to do this. We have just one caller. Just because we are out of time.
I can't understand that.
No, hold on. We have a caller.
Okay.
Caller, please turn your Facebook off and ask your question. All right. The caller is gone. So again, we can't thank you enough for coming and doing this. This is your second time on Focus on Liberia, and we really, really appreciate you coming and providing the needed education. Promise us you're going to come back.
Oh, indeed, all the time, and I just love all of you for that. You think you are doing something small, but we've talked about this every now and then. You think you are doing something small, but those who are capable of hearing will hear. Those who don't want to hear, that's a different ball game. But when we all leave this world, at least you will have had a legacy that people will be proud of in years to come. So thank you all very much, you and Brother C.A.
Thank you. Let me hear any word from my back room. We have our people at control there. Any pattern comment?
Well, we want to thank the professor for coming and providing his understanding on the Southeastern factor. The goal here is for all Liberians, especially those from other regions of Liberia who don't have the basic understanding of what that region is, to get to know and not generalize as many people have been able to do over the time. And that is the entire goal of this program that we had today. And for Dr. Nagbe to come and provide his understanding in such a unique way. He was explaining, I could just imagine everything. If my brain could make a movie, if I was to get him the movie to watch it, he would say, yeah, this is what I was explaining. And so I learned a lot today, and I think many Liberians who listen to learn a lot. The piece of history will remain for all of us to research and learn from. So I want to say thank you, Professor, for doing that for us. We appreciate you so much.
Pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Cian, also for your technical expertise right there in the back room. Yeah. Prof, again, we can't thank you enough. We want to say thank you to all our viewers and people who even will watch later after the show. This will be uploaded on YouTube. And please continue to support us, share the show. In subsequent weeks, we're going to be discussing the Mandingo or the Maleke factor. Why is it that after so many years, the Mandingo came long before 1822 when the settlers arrived? And some people still look at them as foreigners. Why is it that way? We're going to explore the Mandingo factor. We're also going to have Dr. Burroughs to talk about Liberia before 1822. We're going to be kind of going into his book, Between the Cola Forest and the Salted Sea. We also have Dr. Burroughs, who's going to talk to us on the TWP era. That is from 1880 to 1980, those 100 years, right here on Focus on Liberia. And don't forget, we also do politics here. Very soon we're going to be, there has been a tit for tat between the agenda minister and the Nobel laureate, that is Piso Sedita and Lehman Bowie. We're going to come here and break it down and let you enjoy it. We also have the Hour of Politics coming to you every Thursday. Until then, from all of us here at Focus on Liberia, my name is Dennis Jar, bidding you good night. Don't forget now, Liberians, we are all one people, regardless of the region you come from. You could come from Paye in Lofa County, or Glade in Niva County, or Nyamawara in Sino County. We are all one people. Liberia is the only country we have. The reason it was established was to become an oasis in Africa. What you and I can do to contribute to that original intent, that's what we should be thinking about. In this era where there's a lot of noise on social media, what is it that you are listening to? If I were you, I will keep it right here on Focus on Liberia as we educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Good night and God bless you. Bye-bye now.
We are Liberians.